The vermilion gates of Chang'an swung open like the maw of a dragon welcoming prey. Master Sergeant Jack Kane, now Marquis Li Jian, general of the Gentlemen of the Household, pacifier of the West, rode through Mingday Gate, feeling the weight of his new armor like a coffin. The roar of the crowd was a physical force, a tidal wave of sound that carried the smells of roasted lamb, lotus paste, human sweat, and the ever-present canal stench of the greatest city on earth. 3 days later, in the sub-zero chill of the Jinfeng Palace throne room, Jack performed the kowtow with Li Jian's muscle memory, while his mind floated somewhere above, watching the trapped animal in the gilded cage. 9 foreheads to cold jade, 3 risings and kneelings. Each prostration felt like another layer of his old self being scraped away. "Rise, Marquis Li." Emperor Xuanzong's voice echoed in the vast space. The Son of Heaven recognized his service beyond measure. The rewards flowed like a river of gold. The Liangzhou estate, 5,000 mu of prime land, the mansion in Chongren Ward, the advisory position in the Ministry of War. With each gift, Jack felt another invisible chain snap into place. It was during the banquet that followed that the shadow made itself known. "A remarkable ascent," came the silk and honey voice. Lord Feng glided forward, his crimson eunuch's robes whispering against the marble. His face was ageless, smooth as river stone, but his eyes held the sharpness of broken glass. From trench soldier to marquis in 2 campaigns, one might almost call it supernatural. Jack kept his face the perfect mask Mei Lin had drilled into him. "Heaven favors the diligent, Lord Feng. Does it?" Feng's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Or does diligence simply reshape heaven? Your improvements to the stirrup, they've changed cavalry tactics entirely. I've heard the Tibetan prisoners call them devil's footholds." The implication hung between them. "You bring unnatural change." Mei Lin's studio had tripled in size. Where there had been 1 storefront, now there were 3, ink, refined goods, and a new venture, Jade Ghost Security, providing armored caravans for the Silk Road trade Jack had revolutionized. She stood in the courtyard when he arrived, not bowing, but offering the slight, graceful nod of an equal. Her hair was up in a merchant widow's practical bun, but a single jade hairpin, his first gift, caught the afternoon light. "The dragon returns," she said, her eyes scanning his face. "They're already calling you that in the markets. The ghost general who became a dragon. Does the dragon look tired?" "Exhausted." She poured tea, not the ceremonial mush, but the clear, fragrant brew he'd taught her to make with precise temperature control. "Feng's agents have been here. They bought 3 jars of snow salt, asked detailed questions about the evaporation process. They're not spies, they're students." Jack felt cold seep into his bones. "He's reverse engineering my innovations." "Worse," Mei Lin said. "He's building a case. The Confucian scholars at the Academy are debating whether your systematic miracles violate the mandate of heaven by bypassing natural order." Feng funds both sides of the debate. The challenge came not with swords but with poetry. Feng arranged a spring blossom literary gathering at the Serpentine Lake Pavilion. Jack, as a new noble, was expected to attend and contribute. Mei Lin coached him for 3 nights. "You can't compete on classical illusions, so don't. Be direct. Be military." When the ivory poetry token reached him, the gathered aristocrats fell silent. Feng smiled like a cat, watching a mouse approach a trap. Jack rose, walked to the railing, and looked at the moon on the water. He spoke in the clear, unadorned language of a soldier. "Steel reflects no blossom's hue, nor tastes the scholar's wine. It knows its purpose. Hold the line where border stars align. Let petals fall where scholars stroll. The watchtower guards the whole." A stunned silence. Then General Gao, invited as military advisor, brought his hands together in a single thunderous clap. "There is truth in simplicity. The tower guards the whole." The gathering erupted in polite applause. Feng's smile never wavered, but his eyes hardened. Jack had passed the first test, but the message was clear. You are a soldier in a poet's world. Back at his Liangzhou estate, Jack implemented agricultural reforms that would have made an... "Explain again why we plant beans after wheat," asked old Tian, the head farmer, scratching his gray beard. "The beans put goodness back in the soil," Jack said, using the simplest terms possible. He'd tried explaining nitrogen fixation and gotten looks of pure terror. Then the turnips break up the hard earth, then the barley. 4 crops in 3 years, with each helping the next. He introduced the seed drill, a simple tube and plow mechanism that planted seeds at uniform depth. The first harvest yielded 60% more grain. Peasants from neighboring estates began sneaking over to watch, crossing themselves when they thought no one was looking. But the real revolution was in sanitation. Using clay pipes and gravity, Jack built the first modern sewer system in rural Tang, China. He constructed public bathhouses where for a single copper coin, anyone could bathe with his coarse, yellow soap. The Buddhist monasteries loved him. Cleanliness aids meditation and healing, said Abbot Ji Yuan, who adopted Jack's soap for his infirmary. The Confucian local magistrate was less impressed. You encourage peasants to bare their skin in public. This leads to moral dissolution. Feng's next move was exquisitely cruel. At the Mid-Autumn Festival, he presented the empress with a proposal. The widowed minister of revenue, a man of 60 with 3 dead wives, sought a cultured, capable consort to manage his household. Lady Mei Lin, with her business acumen and newfound status, would be perfect. An excellent match, Feng purred in the hearing of half the court. She would bring practical knowledge to a venerable house. Jack felt the cold rage of a sniper waiting for clearance. He couldn't protest publicly without insulting the minister, and by extension the empress. That night, in the hidden study he built for them, the room with the water-powered air circulation and the lock only they knew, Mei Lin was trembling with fury, not fear. He thinks to trade me like a bolt of silk, she hissed, her usual composure shattered. I am not property. No, Jack said, taking her hands. They were cold. You're not. He made his decision then. We need to change the game. The counter-gambit Jack's response was pure asymmetric warfare. He didn't attack Feng or the minister. He attacked the narrative. Using his network of merchants, men who owed him fortunes for the caravan insurance system that had cut their losses by half, he spread a story. Not about Mei Lin, about the minister. The tale was subtle, tragic, and entirely fictional. The minister's last wife had died not of fever, but of heartbreak when she discovered he preferred the company of young boys. The minister sought a new wife, not for companionship, but as cover for his unnatural appetites. Jack seeded this through tea-house storytellers, paying them in silver, to weave it into their tales of court intrigue. Within a week, the rumor was everywhere. The empress, hearing it, went pale. To marry a woman to a suspected sodomite would be a scandal against heaven itself. The betrothal idea died quietly. Feng, when he next saw Jack, merely inclined his head. Resourceful. But the victory came at cost. The minister, humiliated, became an enemy, and Feng now understood that Jack would fight dirty for the woman he loved. With Mei Lin secure for the moment, Jack expanded. He bought a failing ironworks and introduced the Catalan forge process, producing steel of such quality that the imperial armory placed massive orders. He refined sugar until it was white as snow, selling it in crystal form to the ultra-wealthy. He even created a primitive form of canned food, sealing cooked meat in glazed jars with wax for long-distance travel. Each innovation made him richer. Each made him more enemies. The Salt Guild tried to burn down his evaporation ponds. The sugar refiners petitioned the court claiming his methods were alchemical heresy. Traditional doctors declared his soap disrupted the body's natural humors. Through it all, Mei Lin was his fortress. She taught him the 18 complex greetings for different ranks of nobility. He taught her double-entry bookkeeping. She explained the symbolism behind the 12 ornaments on the emperor's robe. He explained germ theory until she could draw the basic idea of microorganisms from memory. One night after a particularly brutal day of court intrigue, she found him on their private balcony, looking at the stars. "Can you find your home stars?" she asked softly. He pointed. "That bright one there. We called it Vega. In my homeland, we believed people might live there. Do you think they have courts and poetry contests there too?" She laughed, and the sound was like water in the desert. He turned and took her face in his hands. "Marry me," he said, the words escaping in English before he caught himself. "Be my wife. Not for politics, for us." Her eyes widened, then filled with tears. "Yes," she whispered in Tang dialect, "but you must ask properly, with a matchmaker, with gifts, with..." I'll give you half my empire, he said, kissing her. Just say yes. The wedding plans became their sanctuary. Jack commissioned a hairpin of jade and gold, fashioned in the shape of a ghost orchid wrapped around a sword, their personal emblem. Mei Lin designed her own wedding robes, incorporating both traditional phoenixes and the geometric patterns Jack doodled from memory of circuit boards. It was General Gao who brought the warning. He came at night, disguised as a merchant. "Feng is moving," the old soldier said, accepting tea with a nod of thanks. "The Emperor has ordered a great hunt at the Summer Palace forests. You are specifically invited to lead the third wing." "A hunting accident," Jack said flatly. "Or bandits. Or a stray arrow." Gao's face was grim. "You've become too powerful, Li Jian. You have wealth Feng's family can only dream of. You have the loyalty of soldiers, and now you'll have a legitimate heir with a clever wife. You're building a dynasty within the dynasty. So I should refuse the hunt? You can't. That would be insulting the Emperor." Gao leaned forward. "But you can prepare. Take your ghost battalion as guards. Claim you need them to demonstrate new field techniques to the other nobles." Jack smiled slowly. "A training exercise during a hunt." "Exactly. Turn his trap into your demonstration." The Imperial hunt was a kaleidoscope of color and death. Thousands of beaters drove game toward the waiting nobles. Hawks circled, hounds bayed, and Jack, with 50 of his best men moving in standard patrol formation, watched the tree line. They found the first bandit 2 hours in, a man with Tibetan features but Han equipment, waiting in a blind with a composite bow that matched the Imperial Armory's latest design. The Ghost Battalion took him alive. The interrogation was quick and quiet. Jack used the pressure point techniques he'd learned at Fort Bragg. The man broke, revealing there were 30 more, positioned along a canyon route the beaters were deliberately steering the hunt toward. Instead of avoiding the canyon, Jack went straight in. But he didn't ride. He dismounted his men, sent scouts ahead, and moved like they were clearing a village in Afghanistan. The ambush was a masterpiece of medieval warfare. Arrows flew from both sides of the canyon, but Jack's men were already in covered positions. They used signal whistles, 3 short blasts for contact left, 2 long for right. They laid down suppressing fire with crossbows, while flanking teams moved up the draws. It was over in 20 minutes. 26 bandits dead, 4 captured, 2 of Jack's men wounded, none killed. When the other hunting parties arrived, drawn by the noise, they found Jack's men treating wounds with alcohol and clean bandages, the prisoners bound and gagged, and a detailed map of the ambush site already sketched in the dirt. The Crown Prince himself, a young man of 16, stared with wide eyes. "You knew they were here?" "I suspected, Highness," Jack said. "Proper reconnaissance is the difference between a successful hunt and becoming the prey." The story spread through the court like wildfire. The ghost had turned an assassination attempt into a training demonstration for the Crown Prince. That night, in the deep confines of his mansion, Lord Feng allowed himself one moment of pure, unadulterated rage. He smashed a celadon vase against the wall, the pieces scattering like ice. "The man is a cockroach," he hissed to his chief agent, a man known only as Shadow. "He survives poison, survives bandits, survives court intrigue." "He anticipates," Shadow said quietly. "It is as if he has already lived through these attacks." Feng froze. The idea that had been gnawing at him for months crystallized. What if he has? He turned, his mind racing. The legends, the stories of men who fall into caves and emerge years later with strange knowledge. The Taoist tales of travelers to other realms. You think he's... I think he's not of this world, Feng whispered. And that makes him either the greatest threat or the greatest tool the Tang has ever seen. He smiled, the anger gone, replaced by cold calculation. We change tactics. If we cannot kill him, we must own him. The wedding of Marquise Li Jian and Lady Mei Lin was the social event of the season. The ceremony lasted from dawn until dusk. Jack moved through it in a daze of ritual, the hair combing, the door games, the countless cups of wine. Only when they were finally alone in the bridal chamber, a room filled with symbols of fertility and joy, did the reality crash over him. He was married, in 8th century China, to a woman he loved more than he thought possible. Mei Lin reached up and touched his face. You're crying. I'm happy, he said, and it was true. And terrified. Good, she said, smiling through her own tears. So am I. Their wedding gift from the emperor was a pair of matching jade tablets, granting them permanent access to the imperial archives. From General Gao, it was a set of matched swords. From Feng, the gift arrived at dawn, a beautiful bronze mirror inlaid with mother of pearl. The note read, "May you always see your true selves." Mei Lin gasped when she saw it. It's a Li mirror, for detecting poison. She touched the surface. And the inlay, it's a map of our estate, every building. Jack felt the cold return. The message was clear. I see everything. I can reach anywhere. He took the mirror and placed it in a locked chest. We'll double the guards, and I'm installing that plumbing system I told you about, the one with the locks on the water inlets. She nodded, her face pale but determined. We knew this wouldn't stop. No, Jack said, pulling her close, but now he's not just threatening me, he's threatening my wife. The change in him was fundamental. Before he had been surviving, now he was protecting. And Jack Kane knew that nothing on Earth, or in time itself, was more dangerous than a Delta Force operator with someone to protect. Part 5. The morning after their wedding, Jack woke to the unfamiliar weight of a woman's head on his shoulder, and the distant sound of market bells. Mei Lin slept with the profound stillness of someone who had fought her way to safety. In the gray dawn light, he traced the curve of her cheekbone, the familiar yet strange sensation of touching another human being after so long in isolation. The peace lasted exactly 2 hours. The pounding on their chamber door was urgent. Marquise, emergency at the Liangzhou estate. Old Tian, covered in road dust and what looked like blood, knelt in their receiving room. Bandits, my lord, not normal ones. They came at night, killed 3 guards, and they didn't take grain or silver. Jack was already buckling on his sword. What did they take? The drawings, my lord, from your study, the plans for the water mills and the seed drills. Mei Lin, dressed now in practical travel clothes, went pale. They're not bandits, they're collectors. The new war. The ride to Liangzhou was a brutal 60 li at full gallop. Jack's mind raced through the possibilities. Industrial espionage in 8th century China. Feng was assembling his toolkit. The estate was a scene of controlled chaos. The head guard, Captain Deng, a veteran Jack had trained himself, showed them the attack site. They knew exactly which building, knew the guard rotation, used these. He held up a crude grapnel hook with a padded throw line. Silent entry. Jack examined the hook. The design was simple but effective, the kind of improvisation he'd expect from his own men. They're learning. In his study, the lacquered box where he kept his technical sketches was gone. But the thieves had missed something. Buried under the floorboards, wrapped in oiled leather, were his most dangerous ideas, formulas for improved black powder ratios, designs for a crank-operated repeating crossbow, and his private journal, written in a mix of English and coded Tang. They have the agriculture, Mei Lin said, examining the empty space. They'll increase yields, gain favor with peasants. It's a political weapon. And next time, Jack finished, they'll come for the weapons. The poisoned gift. 2 weeks later, an imperial edict arrived. Jack was summoned to a special session of the Ministry of War. The cause? Rising tensions with the Nanzhao Kingdom in the southwest. They were raiding border towns, and the local garrison commanders were demanding reinforcements. Lord Feng, now appointed as the emperor's special liaison to the ministry, presided. Marquise Li, he said, spreading a map on the sandalwood table. Your victories in the West are legend. The Emperor believes your unconventional approach might solve this southern problem with minimal expenditure. It was a beautiful trap. Send the famous general to a distant mountainous theater where supply lines would be impossible, against an enemy that used guerrilla tactics. If he won, Feng could claim credit for the strategy. If he lost or was bogged down, Feng could dismantle Jack's power base in Chang'an in his absence. General Gao, sitting to Jack's right, shook his head almost imperceptibly. Don't take the bait. But Jack saw another angle. The Nanzhao fight in mountains and jungles, he said. Heavy cavalry is useless there. I would need a specialized force. Granted, Feng said smoothly. You may recruit and train what you need. And I would need full authority over supply and logistics in the theater. No interference from the provincial governors. Feng's smile tightened. That is unusual. The Nanzhao will target supply lines. Centralized control is the only defense. After a tense silence, Feng nodded. The Emperor wishes victory. You shall have your authority. As they left the ministry, Gao pulled Jack aside. He's giving you enough rope to hang yourself. The southern governors are notoriously independent. They'll resist your authority at every turn. I'm counting on it, Jack said, because while I'm dealing with Nanzhao raids, you'll be here watching what Feng does. And Mei Lin will run your empire. Gao finished, understanding dawning. You're splitting your forces. Like you taught me, Jack said. Never concentrate your vulnerabilities. The Southern Campaign. The journey to the southern frontier was a descent into another world. The air grew thick and humid. The orderly fields of the Central Plains gave way to terraced rice paddies, climbing hills like green stairways. The people were different too, darker, shorter, speaking languages that sounded nothing like Tang dialect. Jack's new command was the Southern Pacification Force, 2,000 men, most of them conscripts from the soft central provinces who had never seen real combat. His first act was to request 500 local tribesmen as scouts. The provincial governor, a bloated man named Liu, laughed. The Man people, they're barely human. They'll betray you for a bag of salt. They know the terrain, Jack said, and I'll pay them in silver, not salt. He found his scouts in a hill tribe village being harassed by Nanzhao tax collectors. Jack's force arrived as the collectors were beating an old man. What followed wasn't a battle, it was an execution. Jack's crossbowmen cut down the Nanzhao soldiers from 300 paces. The village elder, a man named Ashan with intricate facial tattoos, approached Jack afterward. You kill our enemies. Why? Because they're my enemies too, Jack said, and I need guides who know the mountains like their own breath. Ashan studied him for a long moment. You speak straight, not like other Han. We will guide you. Mountain warfare. The Nanzhao weren't an army. They were a culture of warriors who lived in the clouds. Their fortresses clung to cliff sides. Their attacks came as morning mist, striking supply caravans and vanishing back into the jungle. Jack adapted. He broke his force into independent hunter-killer teams of 50 men each, mixing his Tang soldiers with Ashan's tribesmen. Jungle movement, single file, 10-pace spacing, noise discipline, ambush counter-ambush drills, field expedient traps, punji stakes smeared with feces, falling log traps, venomous snake nests placed along trails. But his masterstroke was psychological warfare. Using local materials, he built kites, not for pleasure, but as aerial platforms. At night, his men flew kites with specially crafted bamboo whistles that screamed like tortured ghosts when the wind passed through them. They attached small lanterns to others, creating dancing lights in the mountain passes. The Nanzhao, superstitious mountain people, began reporting sky demons, following their movements. Morale crumbled. The Siege of Cloud Fortress. The decisive moment came at the Nanzhao stronghold of Baiyun Cheng, White Cloud Fortress. It was accessible only by a single narrow path up a 2,000-foot cliff. The previous Tang expedition had lost 800 men trying to storm it. Jack didn't even approach the main gate. Instead, he had Ashon's men lead a team of his best climbers up the unclimbable eastern face. A 3-day ascent using ropes and pitons Jack designed based on modern climbing gear. While the Nanzhao watched the main path, Jack's climbers, 20 men carrying only light weapons and specially packed black powder charges, reached the summit at dawn. They didn't attack the garrison. They blew the fortress's cistern and granary. By the time the main force began its feint up the path, Baiyuncheng was already burning, its water supply gone, its food stores destroyed. The fortress surrendered in 3 days without a single Tang soldier dying in assault. Governor Liu arrived afterward, expecting to claim credit. He found Jack distributing Nanzhao food stores to local villages that had been pillaged. "What are you doing?" Liu sputtered. "That is imperial plunder." "It's food for starving people," Jack said, not looking up from the ledger, "which makes it an investment in future loyalty." "You exceed your authority." Jack finally looked at him. "My authority, as granted by the Emperor, is to pacify this region. Starving people rebel, fed people farm. Which would you prefer?" The victory report that reached Chang'an spoke of clever stratagems and minimal loss of life. It didn't mention the night climbs, the psychological warfare, or the fact that Jack had essentially invented Special Forces mountain warfare 1,000 years early. The war at home. While Jack fought in the south, Mei Lin fought her own battles. Feng's agents launched a 3-pronged attack on Jack's empire. Economic. They undercut his salt prices, selling at a loss to drive him from the market. Legal. Petitions were filed, claiming his land reforms violated ancestral farming patterns. Social. Rumors spread that Mei Lin was barren, that her marriage was unconsummated, that she practiced foreign accounting magic. Mei Lin's counterattack was masterful. She created a cooperative with other merchants, pooling resources to withstand the price war. Hosted the wives of influential officials, demonstrating her womanly virtues while subtly showcasing the comforts of their mansion. Running water, clean toilets, well-lit rooms. Commissioned a series of popular poems about the loyal merchant wife guarding her husband's home. But Feng's most dangerous move was spiritual. He funded a Taoist monastery on a hill overlooking Jack's Liangzhou estate. The monks there practiced geomancy and soon began preaching that the estate's unnatural straight water channels and metal towers, windmills, were disrupting the local feng shui, causing droughts and sick livestock. When peasants began gathering at the estate gates demanding the dismantling of the offending structures, Mei Lin took drastic action. The monastery visit. She arrived at the monastery with 50 guards, not in her fine silks, but in the practical clothes of a merchant. The abbot, a sly-eyed man named Master Wu, greeted her with condescending smile. "Lady Li, we pray for your household's harmony with the natural." "Show me," Mei Lin cut him off. "Show me exactly how our irrigation channels disrupt the dragon lines." Master Wu blinked. "The calculations are complex, involving, I have all day." She produced a mathematical abacus from her sleeve. "And I understand complex calculations." Flustered, the abbot led her to a sand table, showing the local terrain, with colored threads representing dragon lines. Mei Lin studied it, then pointed. "According to Master Guo's Classic of Burial, from the Jin Dynasty, water channels enhance dragon lines when aligned with seasonal flows. Our channels follow the natural grade exactly." The abbot paled. She had quoted a respected classic he hadn't expected her to know. Furthermore, she continued, her voice sharpening. Your monastery's new wing extends into the burial ground of the previous landowner. By the very text you claim to follow, you have created a ghost door that would attract malignant spirits. Unless, she let the word hang, unless you perform the correct purification rites, which require detailed documentation filed with the county magistrate, which I have checked, and does not exist. It was a bluff, but a perfect one. Master Wu began sweating. Building on unconsecrated burial ground was a serious offense. You will cease speaking against my household, Mei Lin said softly, or I will petition to have your monastery investigated for improper construction and fraudulent geomantic practice. The rumors stopped the next day. The letter Jack's message arrived a week later, carried by one of Ashon's tribesmen, who had run the 600 li from the south in 8 days. My star, the mountains are beautiful and deadly. I have made allies of the hill people by treating them as men, not savages, a lesson our court might learn. We have won here, but the victory tastes strange. I use tricks and fear as much as steel. The Nanjiao call me Cloud Demon now. Feng would be pleased. He wanted me to become a monster. More concerning, we captured Nanjiao officers with maps of our border defenses that should not exist. Detailed maps, with annotations in elegant Han script. Someone is selling our secrets, not just mine, the Empire's. I return within the month. Guard yourself doubly. The enemy is not just at the gate. He is drawing the maps for those at the gate. Yours across mountains and time, Jack. Mei Lin held the letter to her chest, feeling the miles between them as a physical ache. Then she went to the hidden compartment behind their bed and retrieved Jack's private journal. She began cross-referencing the dates of the stolen plans with court events. A pattern emerged. Every theft coincided with a meeting of the Ministry of Works or the Imperial Armory Oversight Committee. Someone with access to both her estate and the highest levels of government was running a spy ring, and she had a terrible suspicion who. The homecoming. Jack returned to Chang'an as autumn painted the ginkgo trees gold. He was thinner, harder, his skin weathered from mountain sun. The southern campaign had been officially declared a triumph. The Nanjiao had signed a treaty, opened trade routes, and sent hostages to the capital. But at the victory banquet, Feng raised a toast that chilled Jack's blood. To Marquis Li, who proved that innovation can conquer even the most stubborn foes. May we all learn from his example of adaptable warfare. Later, in their bedchamber, Jack held Mei Lin as if she might vanish. He's not just stealing my ideas anymore. He's co-opting them, making them imperial policy. He's on the oversight committee for the Imperial Armory, Mei Lin said. After your southern report, he proposed creating a permanent special tactics corps based on your methods. The Emperor approved. Jack felt sick. He's institutionalizing my knowledge, making it part of the Tang war machine. There's more. She showed him her analysis. The maps the Nanjiao had, they came from the Ministry of War archives. Only 5 people have unrestricted access. Feng is one. General Gao is another. Jack stared at her. You can't think. No, she said quickly. But someone is using Gao's access, or forging his seal. She took a deep breath. I think Feng is preparing for something bigger than just destroying you. I think he's preparing for a war, and he wants your weapons for it. The midnight visitor. 3 nights later, a figure slipped through their garden gate. Not an assassin. A servant girl from the imperial palace, terrified and bearing a message sealed with a familiar crest. The plum blossom of General Gao's house. Meet me at the Temple of Azure Clouds, dawn. Come alone. Tell no one. Jack went, armed and wary. He found Gao not in the temple, but in a nearby pavilion overlooking a mist-shrouded pond. The old general looked aged, deep lines of worry etched around his eyes. Feng is making his move, Gao said without preamble. The emperor is ill, not publicly, but the court physicians whisper of a slow poison, something that mimics consumption. Jack's blood went cold. Feng wouldn't. He would and he is. Gao's voice was raw. The crown prince is 15. If the emperor dies, a regency council will rule. Feng is positioning himself to control it. And me? You're a wild card. Your wealth could fund opposition. Your military reputation could rally the army. He needs you neutralized or controlled. Gao met his eyes. He's proposing a solution. make you military governor of the Western Protectorate, send you thousands of li away to the Pamir Mountains, a glorified exile. And if I refuse, he'll reveal what he knows, or suspects. Gao leaned closer. He's been asking subtle questions about sudden changes in behavior, about knowledge that appears from nowhere. He's piecing together that you're not Li Jian, and in the climate he's creating, demon possession is a charge that would get you and everyone you love burned alive. Jack felt the walls closing in. Options? Play along. Go west. Take your wife. Build a power base so remote he can't touch you. And leave you here to fight him alone? Gao smiled, a tired, grim expression. I am an old soldier. My battles are nearly done. Yours are just beginning. Build something out there, Li Jian. Or Jack, whatever your name is. Build something that can survive what's coming. What's coming? Feng doesn't just want to control the Tang, Gao whispered. I've seen his private correspondence. He speaks of rectifying heaven's mandate, of a purification. I believe he means to remake the empire in his own image, and he'll use your weapons to do it. The first rays of sun broke over the mountains, painting the mist blood red. Gao placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. You asked me once how to live in this world. The answer is, survive, however you must. Your wife is with child, did you know? The world stopped. What? Her maid told my wife. She hasn't told you yet, I think. She wanted you home first. Gao's eyes were bright with unshed tears. So now you have something more important than empires to protect. Go west, survive, and if the storm I fear comes, be ready. Jack rode home through a city waking to ordinary day, his mind a whirlwind. Mei Lin was pregnant. Feng knew, or suspected, the truth about him. The emperor was dying, and he was being sent to the ends of the earth. When he entered their bedroom, Mei Lin was sitting by the window, a hand resting on her still flat stomach. She looked at his face and understood everything. He's sending us away, she said, placing his hands over hers. To the western frontier, to a place called Dunhuang, the gateway to the Silk Road. Is it safe? Nowhere is safe. He looked up at her. But it's defensible, and far from Feng. He took a deep breath. Is it true? She nodded, tears spilling over. 2 months. I wanted to be sure before. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if against all the forces of time and tyranny. Their child, a life created between two worlds. We'll go, he whispered into her hair. We'll build a fortress. We'll raise our child, and we'll watch. Because Gao is right, a storm is coming, and when it breaks... He didn't finish the sentence, but in his mind he saw it, not just surviving anymore, but preparing, building not just a home, but an ark. For his family, for the knowledge he carried, for a future that was now growing inside the woman he loved. The ghost had become a husband, would now become a father. And the father would become something new entirely, a guardian at the edge of the world, waiting for the darkness to come knocking. Part 6. The Western Fortress. The journey to Dunhuang took 3 months. A caravan of 200 soldiers, 50 servants, 30 wagons of household goods, and 1 carefully guarded cart carrying the core of Jack's library. Technical scrolls wrapped in oiled leather, metallurgy samples, seed stock, and his private journals. They moved through the dying breath of autumn into the skeletal grip of winter, following the Silk Road as it unraveled westward like a fraying thread. Mei Lin, 4 months pregnant now, rode in a specially sprung carriage Jack had designed, a hybrid of Tang aesthetics and what he remembered of suspension systems. Each morning, she would emerge pale but determined, studying the changing landscape with a merchant's assessing eye. Every mile further from Chang'an, she murmured one evening as they made camp near the Yellow River's Great Bend. The sky feels larger, as if we're leaving more than a city behind. We're leaving a cage, Jack said, helping her down. Now we build something that can't be caged. The gateway to nowhere. Dunhuang was not a city, it was an idea carved into desert stone. Nestled at the junction of the northern and southern Silk Roads, it existed as an oasis between the Kaklamakan Desert's Sea of Death to the west and the Kilian Mountains' snow-capped teeth to the south. The town itself was a dusty sprawl of mud brick buildings, clinging to life around a central fortress that had seen better centuries. The military governor's residence was a crumbling complex built during the Han Dynasty 200 years earlier. Its walls showed cracks where the relentless wind had chewed at the mortar. The roof leaked in 12 places. The heating system consisted of braziers that filled rooms with eye-watering smoke. Captain Deng, who had accompanied them with 50 of their most loyal guards, made a slow circle of the main hall. "We can defend this," he said finally, "if we have 6 months and 500 laborers." Jack spent his first week walking the perimeter. Dunhuang's strategic value was immediately clear. It controlled the only reliable water sources for 50 miles in any direction. The Mogao Caves to the southeast already housed a thriving Buddhist community. Monks from as far as India and Persia carving shrines into cliffsides. The town itself was a Babel of tongues, Sogdian merchants with their camels piled high with Persian silverware, Uyghur horsemen selling Turkmen steeds, Tibetan traders with yak wool, even the occasional Nestorian Christian monk heading east with scriptures. It was the edge of the world, and it was perfect. The governor's first edict. Jack called the town elders, Han, Uyghur, Sogdian, Tibetan, and the abbot from Mogao, to the repaired main hall. They came suspicious, expecting the usual demands for taxes and conscripts. Instead, Jack laid out a map, but of water. "The streams from the Kilian Mountains are our lifeblood," he said in clear, slow Tang dialect, with Mei Lin translating key terms into Sogdian and Tibetan. "But spring floods wash away topsoil, and summer droughts leave crops dying. I propose we build a reservoir here," he pointed to a narrow canyon, "with controlled irrigation channels to every field." The Sogdian elder, a man named An Jia with a forked beard, frowned. "The Han governors have promised such things before. They take our labor, then demand more taxes from the increased yield." "No taxes on increased yield for 5 years, Jack said. "Only the original assessment." Silence. Then the Uyghur horseman chief, Batu, laughed harshly. "And who pays for this? Magic?" "I pay," Jack said. He gestured to a chest his guards brought forward. When opened, it glittered with silver ingots, a fraction of his wealth from the soap and sugar monopolies. Wages for every laborer. Abbot Xuanzang, from Mogao, leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "Why?" "Because Dunhuang shouldn't just be a place people pass through," Jack said. "It should be a place worth staying." The Dunhuang project construction began at the spring thaw. Jack applied engineering principles that would have been revolutionary even in 19th century America. The arch-gravity dam, using local stone and a concrete-like mortar he developed from lime, clay, and crushed pottery, they built a curved dam that used its own weight and shape to withstand water pressure. The Qanat system, based on ancient Persian technology but improved with ventilation shafts and gradient calculations, these underground channels brought water from the mountains without evaporation loss. Rotating crops, he introduced alfalfa from Central Asia as a nitrogen fixer, rotating it with millet and wheat, but his most controversial innovation was social, a council. Every major ethnic group in Dunhuang had a representative. Disputes were settled by the council, not by Jack's decree. When Batu's horsemen got into a fight with Han farmers over grazing rights, it was the council, not Jack, that allocated specific pasture lands and crop fields. "You give away your power," Captain Deng warned. "No," Jack said, watching from the fortress walls as the first irrigation channel reached a Sondian vineyard. "I'm building something power can't easily break." Letters from the east. The first message from General Gao arrived hidden in a shipment of jade from Khotan. The code was simple, every third character in a seemingly mundane market report. Emperor's health worsens. Feng controls the inner palace. Crown Prince listens to his whispers. Your special tactics corps being trained by Feng's nephew. They study your southern campaign reports like scripture. Be watchful of your western border. Tibetan envoys have been frequent visitors to the capital. Feng entertains them privately. The second message came a month later, this time hidden in a Buddhist sutra being copied at Mogao. Poison confirmed. Imperial physician executed for incompetence. Regent council forming. Feng named chief administrator. He has proposed an inventory of all frontier defenses. Maps requested from every military governor. Do not send yours. Jack immediately halted work on the dam for 3 days, claiming geomancy concerns. Instead, he had his men build decoy fortifications, fake walls in vulnerable areas, empty barracks that were actually storage sheds. The real defenses he built subtly: underground granaries, hidden cisterns, and a signaling system using polished bronze mirrors that could flash messages across the desert faster than any horseman. The child of two worlds, Mei Lin went into labor during a sandstorm. The howling wind masked her cries as the midwife, a Sogdian woman who had borne 7 children, barked orders in a mix of languages. Jack waited outside, his knuckles white on the doorframe, hearing echoes of a different life where hospitals had sterilized rooms and fetal monitors. When the cry finally came, sharp, clear, furious, the sandstorm had passed, leaving the world washed in eerie orange twilight. The boy was small but strong, with Mei Lin's dark eyes and a curious tuft of hair that seemed determined to defy gravity. Jack held him, feeling a terror deeper than any battlefield. This tiny human was his responsibility in a world that grew more dangerous by the day. "He needs a name," Mei Lin whispered, exhausted but radiant. Jack thought of the journey, the two worlds, the bridge they were trying to build. "Liang," he said. "It means bridge." And Alexander, for the Macedonian who also reached these lands, a name from both our worlds. "Liang Shan Day," Mei Lin tried the sounds. "Liang Shan." "Liang Shan," Jack agreed, kissing the boy's forehead. "May you build better bridges than your father." The unexpected visitor. 6 months after Liang Shan's birth, a caravan arrived from the west, unlike any other. The guards were not Chinese or Tibetan, but men with features Jack hadn't seen in this lifetime. Olive skin, hooked noses, eyes the color of the desert sky. Arabs. Their leader introduced himself as Khalid ibn Yazid, a scholar from Baghdad. "We have heard," he said in fluent but accented Tang dialect, "of the Han governor who builds water systems that defy the desert. The Caliph sent me to see if the stories are true." Khalid was no ordinary envoy. He carried scrolls not of silk, but of parchment. He could calculate the cubic volume of the reservoir faster than Jack's abacus-wielding clerks. He recognized the principles behind the Khanid system immediately. Over 3 days of conversation, with Mei Lin translating the more complex Arabic terms, Jack discovered that Khalid was a scholar of the Bait al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. He knew of Greek geometry, Persian medicine, Indian mathematics. "And you," Khalid said on the 3rd evening, studying Jack over a cup of fermented mare's milk, "know things that are not in any scroll. The angle of your dam, it is optimal in a way our best engineers only guess at." "How?" Jack made a decision. "I had a teacher from very far away. Further than Rome? Further than you can imagine." Khalid's eyes gleamed. "Then perhaps we should trade knowledge instead of silk. The Caliph would pay well for certain understandings." It was a dangerous opportunity, but as Khalid prepared to leave, he offered a warning. "We passed Tibetan patrols growing bold in the Kunlun passes. They test your borders, and we heard in Khotan that a Han envoy from the capital has been meeting with their king, an envoy with no beard and a high voice. Feng was making his move. The siege before the siege. The attacks began as pinpricks. Tibetan raiders struck isolated caravans. Then a frontier watchtower went silent. When Jack's scouts reached it, they found the garrison dead, not from battle, but from poisoned well water. "This isn't conquest," Captain Deng said, examining a curiously wrought Tibetan arrowhead. "This is testing. They want to see how we respond." Jack responded with overwhelming asymmetry. He didn't send soldiers. He sent merchants. Under the guise of trading for Tibetan horses, his agents, mostly Sogdians who could pass as neutral, spread 2 rumors. The Tang Emperor was dying, and a massive army was being assembled in Chang'an to pacify Tibet once and for all. The new governor of Dunhuang had access to skyfire weapons that could burn whole fortresses. Then Jack demonstrated. He had his engineers build a trebuchet on a prominent ridge. Instead of stones, they launched clay pots filled with naphtha and phosphorus, which he'd refined from local minerals. The pots burst against a barren cliffside with a fire that burned even on stone, visible for miles across the desert. The Tibetan raid ceased abruptly, but Khalid, before leaving, had given Jack an Arabic text on siege warfare, and in the margins, in elegant Persian script was a note. "The enemy who tests your walls does not fear your strength. He maps your weakness. The true attack will come, not where you are strong, but where you believe you are safe." The safety of Mogao. The Mogao caves had become Liang Shan's favorite place. The cool, dim grottos filled with the scent of incense and the murmur of prayers felt peaceful. Mei Lin often took him there to escape the desert heat. Abbot Xuanzang had become a friend, fascinated by Jack's practical compassion. In return, the abbot taught Jack the complex politics of the region, which tribes could be trusted, which monks were spies, which oases had water year-round. One afternoon, as Mei Lin sat with Liang Shan, watching monks paint a paradise scene on a cave wall, a novice approached. "The abbot has received a new sutra from India. He wonders if you would examine the quality of the paper." Mei Lin, always curious about materials, followed. The novice led her not to the scriptorium, but to a smaller, isolated cave. As she entered, the door closed behind her. 3 men waited inside. Not monks, Han Chinese, with the sharp eyes of professional soldiers. "Lady Li," the leader said, bowing slightly, "Lord Feng sends his regards." Mei Lin's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. "You are a long way from the capital. Lord Feng is concerned for your safety. These frontier lands are uncivilized." The man smiled thinly. "He offers you and your son escort back to Chang'an, where you can be properly protected." The threat was clear. "Come willingly, or we take you." Mei Lin calculated. She was alone. Liang Shan was with his wet nurse back at the main temple complex. The men between her and the door. "My husband is the military governor," she said. "He decides where we are safe." "Your husband," the man said, "will be receiving news of Tibetan movements requiring his immediate attention at the western border. He will be gone for weeks. Tragically, bandits are common in these parts. They were going to isolate Jack, then take her and the child." Mei Lin's hand went to her sleeve, where she kept not a weapon, but something better, a small clay whistle Jack had made, tuned to a frequency that carried strangely well in the cave complexes. She had used it to call Liang Shan's wet nurse. She blew it now, 3 short, sharp blasts. The men frowned. "What is—" From deeper in the caves came an answering whistle, then another, and another. The Mogao caves had over 500 grottos, connected by a maze of tunnels the monks knew intimately. The door burst open, not with soldiers, but with a dozen Buddhist monks armed with nothing but wooden staffs and cooking pots. Behind them came Abbot Xuanzang, his peaceful face now a mask of righteous fury. "You profane a holy place," the abbot said quietly. "You threaten a woman and child under our protection. Leave. Now." The Han agent's smile vanished. "This is imperial business, monk." "And this," Xuanzang said, gesturing to the cave walls covered in 1,000 Buddha paintings, "is the business of all heavens. Leave, or we will add your bodies to the catacombs where we bury heretics." The agents left, but the message was delivered. Feng could reach even here. Jack's choice. When Jack returned from inspecting the border, where there had been, unsurprisingly, no Tibetan activity, Mei Lin told him everything. That night, standing on the fortress walls under a desert sky dense with unfamiliar stars, Jack faced the truth. He had been building an oasis, a place of peace. But Feng wasn't playing that game. Feng was playing for the Empire. "General Gao's last message," Jack said, the desert wind pulling at his clothes. "He said Feng wants to rectify heaven's mandate. What does that mean?" Mei Lin, holding a sleeping Liang Shan, spoke softly. "It means he believes the Tang has lost the favor of heaven, that a new dynasty must rise, and he intends to be its architect." So, sending us here wasn't just exile, Jack realized. It was removing a piece from the board before he makes his move. He's consolidating power in the capital. When the emperor dies, he'll control the regency, then the crown prince. Then, Jack looked at his son. He'll want to eliminate anyone with independent power, anyone who could challenge the new order. The desert stretched before them, beautiful and deadly. They had built a refuge, but no refuge would be safe if Feng remade the empire in his image. "We have to choose," Mei Lin said. "Hide here and hope the storm passes us by, or prepare to weather it," Jack finished, "and help others weather it too." He thought of Khalid's warning about mapping weaknesses. He thought of the Tibetan raids testing his responses. He thought of the agents in the Mogao caves. Feng wasn't just coming for them. He was coming for everything. Jack made his decision. He would finish the dam. He would fortify Dunhuang. But he would also begin preparing for a different kind of war, not of territory, but of survival. He would turn Dunhuang into a node in a network, a place where knowledge could be preserved if darkness fell over the empire. The next morning, he called for Captain Deng. Double the guard on the seed vaults. Begin copying all our technical scrolls, 3 copies each. Hide 1 set in the Mogao caves, 1 in a sealed cave in the Kilian Mountains, and send 1 with the next caravan to Baghdad. To the Arabs, sir? To anywhere that isn't here, Jack said, and send word to General Gao. Tell him the ghost is awake and watching. As he looked out at the desert, Jack felt the last illusions fall away. There would be no peaceful life on the frontier, not with Feng in power, not with a child to protect. The ghost had become a governor. The governor had become a father. And the father would now become a guardian at the gate, standing between his family and the darkness gathering in the east. For the first time, Jack understood his true purpose in this time, not to change history, but to preserve a future.